We'd learned how to make this beautiful wire ring with glass beads, and I had sketched an earring cup for this wire ring. And as you can see, I maintained the rising part, but I've put it upside down as an earring cuff and a dangling part. This is the cuff, and this is the dangling part with a pearl and a pin. What we need: 16 and 18 gauge wire for the main structure and 26 gauge wire for the weaving parts. And also glass beads that we had in previous tutorial. I'm using this type, but you could use any other kinds of seed beads, and they are just tiny and have little holes in between. And also delicate chain for that dangling part, and of course the pearl with a hole in between. We need plastic fasteners that is going to be attached to the earring pin. It also keeps the cuff part from falling down. Here I'm using water to make my ear wet, and then put a napkin, a paper napkin on it to know the exact shape and size of the ear. And I'm using my pen to make marks on paper and then complete it. To draw the map, I need to make the ear cuff, and also we need to determine the exact point of your ear hole to shape the cuff just like this. And the sharp point is just beneath the ear hole, and it would turn back to the ear. And here we have two little loops here. It could be something like this, or two loops in one direction. First of all, pick up 16 gauge wire, and of course it's the dead soft one, and the length is up to the size of your ear and the map you had drawn. But I need something about 8 centimeters. I put about 1 centimeters from one side and bend the other and the rest parts from midpoint and squeeze it well with chain nose pliers. We squeeze it so well so that there wouldn't be any spaces in between, very carefully so that the two parts won't overlay onto each other, and then rotate it and open up the two tails just like this. And I'm going to make curves on both sides to make a beautiful form, and also to be in harmony with the wire ring. So I repeat that just with my hand, make a positive curve and then a negative one, just like a weave. And here with chain nose pliers, check it out to be in one surface and to be all flat. And here, this is what we have till now. And you could open this part with round nose pliers, then put it on what you had drawn, and where it meets the outline of your ear on both sides, we need to bend it with chain nose pliers. So at that point, I put my chain nose pliers, make a 90-degree bend, and continue that to have a U shape, just like this. And continue the same for the other part to have this shape. This is the main structure for the cuff part. And here we need to make two little loops at the end points of the wire. So with round nose pliers, I start to make 2 little loops, and this would be the backier part of the cuff. And one of these loops should be exactly in front of the sharp points, because the ear pin is going to be inside that loop. So here I need to refine the form with chain nose pliers, and I do that for both parts, and check that to be well arranged to be put onto ear. Now I pick up round nose pliers, put it just here to check so that the backier loop be just in front of the sharp edge. And here at this point, I'm going to make some hammering works. You could skip this part, but if you like to this point to be hammered just like this, you could simply do that with a metal mallet, just like we had in previous tutorial, and you could check it out above. Here I'm going to squeeze it a little more, and here we are going to add beads on both parts, just 4 beads at right and 4 beads at left. You could check it out how to do that in previous tutorial, again in above link. And this is how it looks on our cuff part in all point of views. And here we are going to make the second part. Make a very little loop with your round nose pliers and on 18 gauge wire, and in about 2 centimeters cut it out with flush cutter. Pick up the delicate chain and cut it out in about 3 centimeters or at any length that you desire. It could be a little longer or a little shorter. And we are going to join these two parts with a very little jump ring. So again, I make a very little loop with 18 gauge wire, cut it out at the very end, and attach these two parts together. And here I'm going to insert the pearl into the thinner wire of about 26, or even you could use 28 gauge wire. Leave about 2 centimeters from one point and make a closed loop with round nose pliers. And while you're keeping that loop with one hand, start to rotating and weaving the other side all around to make a very little wire wrapping part, or better say a wire coil, and then cut it out and squeeze it well to have something like this. Then make another loop at the other side and start to wrap the thinner wire just all around onto the pearl for about 4 or 5 times, and then cut it out at the very end with flush cutter and squeeze the ending point with chain nose pliers. So I squeeze this open part onto the swirls that I had just made, and this is the part that I'm going to attach the pearl, and at the other side you could just make the other loop squeezed with chain nose pliers to have something like this. I mean, one complete loop and one is pressed, and I'm going to make the pressed one just like a little U shape and squeeze it again with chain nose pliers to have a very little point at the other side, just like this. And I'm going to attach this pearl to the other parts with another little jump ring, just like this. I insert jump ring into the last part of the chain and insert pearl in and close it. And this would be the dangling part of our wire earring. This part is going to be inside our cuff, just like this. When you put it onto ear, you just add the dangling part into the ear hole and it would go through the backer loop. And finally, you add the plastic pin or the plastic fastener. Hope you had enjoyed this tutorial. Take care.